Looking for a cosmic adventure like no other? Zatswan, Multiversal Guardian is a high-stakes comic book journey through the multiverse with stunning art and an unforgettable hero. Get your copy today in ebook and paperback formats. Link in the description.
Hi everybody, this is Neil Allen, the creator of the comic series Zatswan. The first book 1 volume, Multiversal Guardian, is currently available for purchase on Amazon.com. You could pick it up in the link in the description below. It's free if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, and if not, the digital version is only $2.99. So the comic is very accessible. I do hope you pick that up and leave a review to let me know what you think. And as you can see here, I am working on Zatswan right now. I'm working up on the follow-up book, which is called Zatswan Stardust Embrace. So this is like book 2. So interestingly, I listened back to a video that I put out called How DC Let Me Down. So I created my own comic. And this is the comic that I created. You're seeing it right here. So I would actually like to talk a bit more on that topic because it is like pretty interesting. I think it's apropos considering there is something that's been making the rounds a bit with fans is news of another possible merger or another, like, DC Comics is essentially going to get sold. Well, not going to. We don't know for sure, but there is a person or people courting to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. And this is, and DC Comics is a part of that. And this is getting kind of tiring at this point. It's like, how many times has DC been sold within the last, I don't know, 5 years? I mean, do you guys remember Daniel Cherry? Remember when he was there? He was like the head of DC and he lasted like, what, all of 2 weeks or something? I mean, honestly, probably longer than that. It could have been like only like 3 months, though. I don't know how long it was, but it was a very short length of time. And this is getting a bit tiring, I think, because when they do these buyout / merger / whatever, oftentimes, there is what they call a bloodbath, where they lay off a bunch of people, new management comes in, and then, then you don't know what you're going to get from them. Like, you have no idea. It could work in your favor. It can work against it. So, if you've been following, some of the things I've been talking about lately, then you might have noticed that I'm more excited about DC than I have been in a very, very, very long time. So there are a couple things that have, led me to feel this way. Basically, they're just actually giving attention to characters and character relationships that I actually grew up liking, when those things were completely disregarded, and the previous regimes have tried to just forget them, not reference them, act like they never even happened. And those things in particular that kind of got my attention back toward DC. There are 2 big ones, although they're related. It's looking like my favorite DC character, Green Lantern, John Stewart, is going to be the primary Green Lantern in this new James Gunn universe, so I'm very happy and excited about that. And so yeah, he's going to be the main star of the upcoming show Lanterns, and we'll find out more about that later. I'm very excited to see what the suits will look like. So far, the only things that have come out, the only image that's come out about it that I've seen is Hal Jordan, older Hal Jordan, and John Stewart in like civilian clothing. So I'm excited to see what the actual suits will look like. So that's one thing. And another thing that's related is Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, my favorite DC ship, is like making a resurgence. It started, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago. It's kind of been creeping about, but it's seems it is on the upswing. Like the first thing that we saw was I don't remember what year that was. Could have been like 2023 or something, when the direct to video movie Green Lantern Beware My Power came out, and Green Lantern and Hawk Girl Shiera were essentially the main characters of that, I would say. Well, Jon Stewart definitely was. And Shiera, Hawk Girl, was a very important part of the group as well. So I'm like, whoa, Green Lantern and Hawk Girl actually being referenced by DC. Like, well, I mean, DC has tried to like sneak in little Easter eggs here or there, like very small ones. I could give you an example. I think, what was it, in that Green Lantern 80-year anniversary anthology, there was a Green Lantern and Hawk Girl story in there written by Dwayne McDuffie's widow. Um, the Hawk Girl they used, I mean, just to split hairs in that, was Kendra Saunders, though. Jon Stewart's love interest is Shiera Hall. Comics being comics, you know, you got multiple characters going around like under the same hero mantle. But regardless, it was still like Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, and everybody knew what they were driving at. But it was like just a short story in an anthology. Not a whole lot happened, but it was still like cool to see that. But yeah, DC has like run away from that, and the reason being is like there are like your kind of hardcore DC Comics reader. They tend to hate nearly everything involving Jon Stewart. I mean, they're always complaining about him. That's one of the reasons why it's interesting and fun for me to talk about. And frankly, it's kind of fun to see their reactions when, you know, their bubbles get burst. You know, like see how they react to some of this stuff. I admit I get a little bit of a glee out of it. I guess because they're so used to being so entitled and getting things the way they want, when something actually goes another way, it's like they don't seem to know how to handle it very well. So anyway, yeah, that stuff has got me excited again. And so, oh yeah, Green Lantern and Hot Girl coming back. So yeah, it started on, let's see. I'm picking a color here. I would say that started on Green Lantern Beware My Power movie. Then we actually saw it come into the DC comic books in the current Green Lantern Corps run. Shiera showed up in that to team with Jon Stewart, and we'll have to wait and see to see if DC is going to continue with that development. I suspect they will, and even more is the actress who plays Hawk Girl, Kendra, in the Superman movie. She has expressed an explicit desire to see the romance with Jon Stewart carry over into film. So, I mean, there's been quite a bit of Green Lantern and Hawk Girl stuff pop up recently. And remember, there was a massive drought of it for like over a decade, because that was something DC did not want. You know, and they cater to an audience that does not want that either. That said, that audience is only these hardcore readers. Your general typical fan, I think, doesn't necessarily feel that way. And I think, interestingly, DC is like moving forward, appealing more to that general fan and appealing to people like me. Like, there are hardcore people like me who really like it as well. So, they're like appealing to that audience, and it's like, oh wow, this is cool, because definitely the stuff that was coming out prior was not appealing to me. I wasn't really into it at all. It was appealing to like a completely different type of reader, who is that person who is again, these people are kind of used to being catered to. So they're not all of them, but some of them are just kind of, you know, spazzing out online and places like Reddit uh, about these new developments, which, you can't make everybody happy. So I've been kind of pretty enthusiastic about the stuff that DC's been doing lately, but getting back to my point, when you have like a potential buyout, it kind of makes you wonder, like, okay, I was just, or it makes you think sort of along the lines of, okay, I was just getting back into your thing. If that actually goes through, where does that leave everything? You know what I mean? Like, now a thing like lanterns, I think, will obviously continue because it's already underway. It's like being shot and worked on and stuff. But still, like, we don't know what that might entail for DC projects, and you just never know. It's like you might not like what they're doing. Now, of course, these are all hypotheticals, but it's still something to kind of think about. Because for now, we don't even know if the sale's going through, so it's all kind of like what ifs, but it does make you think because um, so we don't know if it'll actually happen, but it could, so it just kind of makes you think about the situation. And like, I remember saying in that other video that, like, oh, I didn't trust these guys, and I was kind of wary about putting in too much investment in this thing that I didn't control and I didn't trust. It seems kind of like the exact sort of thing that would happen, that I would start getting back into this stuff, and then suddenly, oh, it gets sold to some people who have a completely different direction they want to take things. And about that different direction, there is some rumor I've heard about it. So one of the things I've heard, and bear in mind, this is only stuff that I've heard, is that the people looking to buy it are apparently looking to further more conservative views in media. That is like their goal, which is pretty interesting. Now, what would that mean? Like, let's just kind of go down this rabbit hole. How would that affect like a DC Comics? I guess we can kind of speculate on some things. How would it affect a character like John Stewart, the Black Green Lantern, in a sea of a bunch of white and non-black Green Lanterns? I mean, if you want to like start kind of getting doomy and gloomy about it, he could just go right back to being sidelined under the pretext of, well, he's not the original, he's not like the real one. We're gonna, all the reasons you've basically heard, like, this is not comics accurate. We're gonna stop this, stuff and make it more the way it was, and all of this and that, like, but again, I would like to say, like, these are all hypotheticals. Like, I'm just like, it's just kind of a thought experiment, somewhat, I guess you can say. I guess worst case scenario for Jon Stewart fans, that can happen. But the thing about it is, like, just that can happen, and it kind of highlights the point I was bringing up in that video, in that, okay, like, this type of stuff, it's hard to trust it. Even when you start liking something, just like that, they can pull the rug out from under you. And, like I was saying in the video, I don't really have that sense of security with these companies, because I know they're prone to doing that. When there's like a whole segment of people, creators and fans and executives and stuff like that, who want to see stuff that's completely, again, they want to see the same sort of thing. So they may want to see Green Lantern or something like that. But when they want to see Green Lantern like completely a different way than you want to see it, and those people are out there, and that sentiment is out there, then you're probably always kind of on edge or something like that. And that's not a good feeling, honestly. It's like, that's not the way it should be. And that's why I created Zatswan. So even if worst case scenario, like for me, I'm not talking about for everybody, but just for let's get some more colors here. Even if worst case scenario came true, for me, I would personally be okay because I still have my Zatswan project. I'd be okay in a couple different ways. If let's say they want to like can all the or sideline all the quote unquote POC characters or black characters or whatever, what have you. I mean, that's kind of a lame thing to do, I think, and not really smart any kind of way, like not with business or anything. I mean, I think that's lame, but at the same time, it's like, well, that just that makes more room for people like me who actually have a character here like Zatswan, because people are they're going to make their stuff and they're going to find their stuff no matter what you try to do. With the internet, there are just too many options for people. So if they want to see that, they will make it, and people will make it, and people looking for it will find it. So, actually, in some ways, that wouldn't even be so bad for me. And in other ways too, as far as just being a fan, well, it's like, if they were to do that, it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of a bummer. But like I said in the video, it's like, I never really trusted them anyway, which is why I have something like Zatswan. I think I mentioned something along the lines of, it's always there for me, always going to be the way I want it to be, not going to betray me, not going to disappoint me. And honestly, that's how it should be. I know it's not always like that, especially when you're dealing with like black characters and stuff. And I mentioned that because they're operating in a space, so to speak, that traditionally has roots in them either not being showcased at all or being just kind of supporting or sidelined or something like that. And those roots go deep, you know what I mean? So the cool thing about a thing like Zatswan, it doesn't have roots like that. And that actually means a lot, I would say. The roots are just the opposite. It's about, showcasing a character like this in a positive light, making sure that they get all the perks of being the hero that all these other characters, like white characters, regularly get. That's what it's about, really. So the core founding values are completely different than like something from a DC comic. So you would never see that with a thing like Zatswan, because I've mentioned this in other videos too. It's because I'm literally a person who tends to have values like that. A lot of times they're more consciously aware, aware of issues like that, like these characters being sidelined, and they're more, they're more likely to to not have that sort of thing. Other things just like don't care, or these types of characters just aren't their focus. With a thing like DC Comics, I say that for the most part, these types of characters, we went a little bit outside the lines there. I think I'm going to kind of... So there are different ways we can take care of that. We can just kind of lighten it up, or I can get a kneaded eraser and try to lift. I think that I am going to... A kneaded eraser won't work the best on this type of paper. Those are better for more sanded papers, and it's not even that big a deal, but I think I am going to get the kneaded eraser and see what I can do there. So I'm going to pause this up for a second. Oh, interestingly, I had one just kind of sort of in front of me. So a kneaded eraser is like one of these things. You've probably seen them before. You can kind of tear them off. So the way that you handle these things, if you've wondered, it's not to do like a regular eraser. It's to like press down and lift. They're like sticky. So yeah, so I'd say that, going back to it though, that is kind of a concern. Ultimately, I wouldn't worry too much about it. at this stage, because, you know. Okay, so press down and lift. I'm talking about that. Paramount is who it was, like courting to buy DC. I guess it's like one thing at a time, you know, like don't worry about that until it happens, especially when obviously there's nothing any of us can do about it, so it's either going to happen or not. And until it happens, probably wouldn't, you know, get particularly spooked about it. But from what I have seen online, like the fans that I've seen at least haven't seemed to like enthusiastic about that prospect, and neither am I. So about that thought though, about like supposedly the goal is to, and I think that actually kind of worked against me. But it's okay, because there's actually, you know, the whites of the eyes aren't supposed to be totally white anyway. I think I covered some white up with a with my colored pencil, so I'm going to add a little more black to that eyeball. Just happen to have a Marvi Uchida Le Pen handy. I keep it handy in case I do need to do touch-ups like that. Okay, so interestingly, I know I talk about a variety of things here, but people who like tune in to me kind of get that. I'm gonna like talk a bit about colored pencils here. Like we're using the Derwent Drawing Pencil. One of the reasons I'm doing Derwent Drawing here is, the reasons are multiple. Derwent Drawing colored pencils is kind of a small set that works very good on like portrait work, like flesh tones, and like landscapes and things like that. So when I'm doing, and they're great pencils. Everyone seems to love Derwent Drawing Pencils. They're like really good. The interesting thing about them though is like they're just like, it's only a 24 set. It has been for a long time. And you only get like a very limited range of colors, which are like these earthier colors and more skin tone colors and landscape type of colors. So that was like the downside of the Derwent Drawing Pencil line. Like I've mentioned before in videos, Derwent has like a lot of different lines of pencils. Like recently I was using the Color Soft and the Pro Color. Now I'm using the Derwent Drawing. But recently Derwent has, it seems they're coming out with the new 72 pencil range in the Derwent Drawing line. So it was only like 26 pencils, 26 really good pencils, but very limited set. Now they're boosting it up to 76, so that's definitely going to be a must buy for me, because Derwent Drawing Pencils are really good, and I'm interested in that. You know, you're coming out with more colors, I'm definitely going to be showing up for that. So yeah, that's what we're using right now, Derwent Drawing Pencils. That's what they're called. Not Color Soft, not Pro Color, but Derwent Drawing. And you can tell the drawing pencils from this brown barrel, and they have like the tip, that the color you're using on the end. So there's some other interesting stuff to talk about that I haven't really mentioned here, like about Green Lantern. So one of those Green Lanterns, Jessica Cruz, is getting her own cartoon show called My Adventures with Green Lantern, and it like stars her in high school, and Kyle Rayner's gonna be her love interest, and the Green Lantern Corps is destroyed, and this, that, and the other, and it doesn't sound, it's definitely not, again, this is one of these things that's not comics accurate. You know, so it's just basically sort of using the character, like Jessica Cruz in the comic books is not a high school student. She is known for having like extreme anxiety problems. That seems to be one of the things that attracted the people working on it, and they're bringing that over. So no, it's not like a comics accurate thing. It's just sort of like, I don't know. Um, just some other kind of story using characters that are familiar from the comics, but putting them in some other completely different story. And what do I think of that? Oh, my thoughts on that. I remember how I said, like, if there's something I'm not, I said it in another video a while back. I think I was talking about, which one of my videos was it? It was probably, has Hot Girl supplanted Hawkman? So if you, it was that video. I was using Derwent color soft pencils to color in an Alakazona. I said something in there like, if I just don't like something, I leave it alone. I don't like go on rants about, it needs to be like this. And I was bringing out like, I am not Starfire, like people being obsessed about like blasting that. It's like I can't really relate to. The thing is like, yeah, I Am Not Starfire is like a young adult graphic novel for those who don't know, and it's kind of notorious, at least among a certain segment of people. Um, it definitely doesn't look like anything that I would read myself, but I don't care necessarily that it is there because all I have to do is not read it. And I kind of feel the same way about my adventures with Green Lantern. Doesn't sound like on paper it's anything I'm interested in at all. So, reasons being, I'm not interested in the Jessica Cruz incarnation of Green Lantern. I stopped being interested in new Green Lanterns after Kyle Rayner. So, when they made Simon Baz, that was my limit. I'm like, no, too many of these guys around. And I've talked about before how there are too many of these Green Lantern characters around. I'm just not into that. So, yeah, I think I didn't even realize I necessarily had this policy. But yeah, I'm just not open to any new Green Lantern characters at the point Jessica Cruz came in. Just not interested, personally speaking. Like, I don't know if there's anything you can do to interest me in that. I just don't think they should be there. Because there's just too many of these characters by the point. The more they add on, it's like the more they dilute their brand and the concept. Many people would agree with me with that. Would agree with me on that. Even people who would probably vehemently agree with me about a lot of other stuff. So okay, it's a Jessica Cruz thing. Ain't interested, and not only that, it doesn't sound, just the pitch doesn't sound like anything I'd be interested in. So I'm just gonna pass. And it's like, okay, whatever, you want to do that. I'm just not gonna pay attention to it. I kind of have a hunch. I don't know. It probably won't. I don't know. I don't want to jump to conclusions. Some stuff I think is just kind of easy to ignore, but maybe. Okay, like for example, it sounds like DC Superhero Girls in the sense that it's this totally other thing. Yeah, it has the characters you recognize, but like presented in a way that is absolutely nothing like what you read about them in the comic books. And it seems to me like it's set up to just be some sort of side thing. Easy to ignore. And I guess that's how I feel about it at this stage, at least, just not gonna like look into that. But what do I think about that sort of thing? Like taking this property, we're talking about Green Lantern now, and presenting it in a way that is totally, totally different, and kind of counter to the source material. I've thought about that a lot, actually, believe it or not. And I think that's something I still kind of wrestle with. Because, like, take Lego Batman or something like that. That is kind of one of those things, too. Like, this is a totally different take on Batman. But that said, like, do you do that, or instead of doing Lego Batman, do you just come up with a whole other thing that can appeal to who and what you want to do? But I know it's not apples to apples, because Lego Batman still kind of has the trappings of Batman that still wouldn't contradict anything. Like there's Bruce Wayne there. I assume there's Alfred and all the villains, and it's in Gotham City. I do know, like, I don't really follow Lego Batman, but I'm pretty sure it like works like that. In, say, My Adventures with Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner will be the love interest supposedly, and you're not gonna find that in the Green Lantern comics. If there's anybody Jessica's been closest with, it's Simon Baz, who's another one of these characters that he's past my threshold. You know, like he was the first one that came along where I was just like, man, no thanks, no more of these guys. And yeah, they just keep adding them, and at some point, you know, you gotta just kind of, you know, set your limit. And I guess my limit was, you know, my actual limit was Kyle Rayner, and they've gone well beyond that limit by now. So, what do I feel like that? I don't know, I kind of don't care. I wouldn't handle my brand like that. No, I've thought about this. Before. Like, if I'm ever fortunate enough to get to that point where Zatswan will be adapted, I'm gonna be involved with that adaptation to prevent stuff like, say, like, for example, race bending my characters or something. Like we have AC Cooper here and Alakazona here, and I just had I had one of these recent videos where I was talking about how Alakazona could. We were talking about how been said before. I think it's been said coincidentally by more than one person that Alakazona looked like she was Swedish. Well, that's gonna, whatever it is that Alakazona looks like, Swedish or whatever, she's gonna have to look like that in every single depiction you ever see of her. I'm sure there are some people out there who, if they wanted to adapt this thing, they'd be chomping at the bit to turn her into something else, a black woman, any whatever, you know what I mean? I'm sure they would love to do that. There are people out there who would. And no, Alakazona looks the way she does for a reason. It was, you know, consciously thought out. It is meaningful. And also, I don't work that way, really. Like, I care how I'm sorry, I hit the phone by accident. I care how my brand is presented. Everything I'm doing here is done for a reason, was given some thought, you know, and it's a part of the Zatswan package. Like, so if like some people are like, can't do that, you know, I'm going to have some integrity, and actually I would have to turn that down. No, because I care about my thing too much, and, you know, I would be completely against somebody putting out something that runs totally contrary to what I am doing here. So I would have to be involved in that, like, at a very key level. Like, I would probably even have to, like, approve the casting and stuff like that. For, like, at least the major characters. If it ever got to that point, which would be awesome. It is fun to dream, isn't it? But no, I can't have, like, that. I made Zatswan this way for a reason. And, you know, I don't want my characters race bent. I don't want them, you know. Now, here's one thing I will say, though. Here's what I will say about that. That is not to say that somebody couldn't take Zatswan, warp it some kind of way, and maybe even still come up with something good. That's, like, not the issue in question. I would say the issue in question is that is just, Zatswan is my creation. it is consciously well thought out to be the way that it is. There's a reason why AC Cooper here, otherwise known as Zatswan, is the color he is, the way he looks. That's not just by happenstance. There's a reason he is the main character. There's a reason for all of this stuff. You know what I mean? It's not like arbitrary. I guess that's what I'm pointing out. So, if someone would want to adapt my thing, they're just gonna need to adapt my thing. And if my thing isn't up to snuff with them or something, I think I would probably just like say, oh, I don't know about that. Like, man, no thanks. Like, I know George R. R. Martin, he didn't just let the first person who approached him adapt A Song of Ice and Fire. He was very protective of his property. And, I know, like, sometimes, and he still is, and sometimes it seems like he can be to an unreasonable level. Like, I know every time that he like does these adaptations, I should have some glassine paper down so I'm not resting. I'm looking over here. I should have some glassine so I'm not like resting my hand, or I should be resting on the paper. I'm gonna get some of that real quick, but before I do that, let me finish my thought. Every time his stuff gets adapted, he like inevitably clashes with the people who are doing the adaptation. He did it with Dave and Dan from Game of Thrones. He did it with the dude doing House of the Dragon. Dude doing House of the Dragon just said George R. R. Martin was unreasonable. And, I don't know. That's kind of a tricky situation. Some people got on him. I don't remember his name. Some people got on him like, you don't say that about George R. R. Martin, the guy who's responsible for all this stuff. But maybe George R. R. Martin was unreasonable. See, the thing is, they have like other... I don't want to go through all the logistics of how this happened, but in his books, Fire and Blood, which I mentioned before, I know that story mainly as The Princess and the Queen. Like, he told the same story in multiple books. It's kind of... I don't feel like explaining it. But there are some assassins that come in and kill some children, and in his books, I don't feel like getting into all the like minutia of that, but yeah, they like went a different way because they didn't. If I recall correctly, they didn't feel like casting a baby actor or something like that, because there's all kinds of things, so all kinds of like concerns with that, so, and they didn't feel like going through it, so they just kind of changed something in the story to kind of fit their logistical needs a bit better. And George R. R. Martin, from what I recall, like kind of made a tiff over that, like, no, this is key, every time I imitate George, I always need to talk in my George R. R. Martin voice. And the thing is, like, when you're, and he should know this, he worked on the Beauty and the Beast show. When you're like running a show, you have completely different concerns, like dealing with these actors and their availability and, all this stuff. And that, needs to be taken into consideration. So on things like that, I personally think I can bend. Maybe George was a little unreasonable, but I don't know. I really wasn't there. So, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was, I guess is what I'm saying, because George R. R. Martin kind of does seem sort of unreasonable. Just the fact that, you haven't finished your book in 17 years is unreasonable, if you ask me. So, but there are some things that, like, I might be able to bend on something like that. There are some things I won't bend on, like, Zatswan needs to look like Zatswan, and Alakazona way over here, I know she's kind of in the dark, the light's not shining on her, she needs to look like Alakazona. Those things, like, no, I'm not, you're gonna have to get the blonde hair and everything. There is no brunette Alakazona, like, cannot happen. That's like making a brunette Sailor Moon. It's like weird. You know, that's the way I see it. So let's blend out with some walnut oil. I have some over here. And we're going to, this will break down the binder some, start where it's light. So interestingly, we got onto that topic of like adaptations and things. So, you know, I might seem kind of hypocritical to some people. Like, you like Jon Stewart and Hot Girl, and that's like against the source material, and rah. Well, you know, you might note that I said that I am not saying that somebody couldn't do something differently and not have it be good. I'm not saying that. Maybe people could. I'm not saying that, you know, I would irrefutably always have the better representation of Zatswan versus somebody else. No, that's not what I said. Plus, that's a subjective thing, so it'd be kind of hard to measure. I guess you can kind of measure audience reception and critical response. You can do that. But what I did say is that for me personally, I just would need that because it is my thing and I created it. Now, the people who created, like, the people who created these characters and these concepts, I do not believe they are alive anymore. And about even Green Lantern being an original thing, it was already bastardized when Julius Schwartz and John Broome and Gil Kane came up with Hal Jordan. You know what I mean? So, because Green Lantern originally had nothing to do with no Hal Jordan. Now, the company itself did that, but it wasn't the creators who did that. So yes, it was an official thing because the creators did not own Green Lantern. But I mean, the thing's already gone that route. So don't come at me acting like there are just too many other rabbit holes we can go down. Like, Hal Jordan's not the original Green Lantern. He just can't be, no matter how you spin it, because he literally cannot. About Hawk Girl and Hawkman, yeah, that's the way it originally went. But even there, it's like, if you want to split hairs, the Shayera version's not the original Hawk Girl. And that's the Hawk Girl that, like, is involved with Jon Stewart mostly. But that said, that's that stuff. Like, what they do with that stuff and how they present that stuff is them. I'm just only speaking of myself personally. And honestly, that's kind of why I'm making this point. We're still talking about, I know we bounce from thing to thing. That's just what it's like when you ramble. We're still talking about, like, the Jessica Cruz cartoon show. No, I wouldn't handle my stuff that way, but if they want to do that, whatever, and I'm not going to get... And see, that's the danger of being too invested in stuff like this, that you don't control, that you don't own. It's like, the way to look at it is just whatever, but I think a person who's too invested will look at it as like, you know, this is damaging to the brand, you know, like, they're presenting the brand in a way that isn't, like, in line with the brand, and it's just going to overall damage it. Yeah, it very well may. Like, if you're that person, I certainly hear you, and that's why I wouldn't allow Zatswan to be presented as that, you know. Like, if you want to present Zatswan a completely different way, you make a completely different thing. There are some exceptions, I think. Let me talk about the exceptions. And no, Green Lantern does not fit these exceptions. If somehow Zatswan became so popular that everyone knows what it's like originally, and then they would know that Zatswan Beach Blast Special or something is like a different take on an idea that everyone knows. I think that's why Lego Batman gets away with it. Everybody knows that Lego Batman's an alternate take, and they're already very familiar with like regular Batman. Do you know what I mean? Everyone knows Lego Batman's just there for fun, but with a thing like Green Lantern, uh, people don't know that property that well, not well enough. So basically, I highly doubt this would happen, though the possibility does exist. It exists more than it exists for Lego Batman. That your alternate, it actually happened somewhat with Jon Stewart. Your alternate take on Green Lantern becomes the face of Green Lantern, because the traditional take of it never took off really. The alternate take took off more. So yeah, that could happen. And no, I wouldn't allow that for my brand. I might allow alternate takes like Zatswan Super Go-Kart Racing or something like that. Only if Zatswan was probably like regular Zatswan was like very well known and popular. Otherwise, people could just start thinking like, oh, well, I know the go-kart version of Zatswan, the racing game or something like that. And it's like, um, um, no, because I've seen these things. Like I've talked about in other videos that one of the things that you should do is take a look at when you're doing something like this, you take a look at other things and see the things that worked for them and see the things that didn't. That might sound tempting on the surface, but ultimately I think that can confuse and damage the brand if the brand isn't well established enough. With Green Lantern, no, I don't think the brand is like, I don't know, it's all over the place. I would say that's a very mismanaged brand. So, but ultimately, this is getting back to the main point of like this potential buyout that we were talking about. Ultimately, you got to get to a point where it's like you just don't, like, that's their problem. That's not your problem. You can't do anything about that. And that's why, like, Zatswan, I think, for me, is really, really good. Like, you shouldn't be too invested in that. It can be frustrating. I think I'm beyond that point where I would actually get frustrated about the stuff. Disappointed a bit here. Like, if you gas me up about Green Lantern and Hot Girl and don't follow through with anything, or or you just decide to sideline Jon Stewart after all this build up they've been doing with him, that would be disappointing. But I don't think they would get me too much with it. I would just go back to working on my comics like I'm doing now and be like, well, good thing Zatswan's here. So we're going from all kinds of different subjects, but that's why it's so hard to get into these comics. I think I really hit on that. And I think why a lot of people don't, and why a lot of people kind of check out and are checked out, reader security and peace of mind. Like, when you're not giving that to the reader or the fan, I think of it like good. They're going to end up getting frustrated, and they're probably just going to end up checking out in some way at some point eventually. Now they'll have that. How do you get that for them? You just keep showing up reliably for them. I'm not saying you don't just give them comfort food. Yes, you challenge the characters, you put them in precarious states. Maybe you do take them off the board for a while. Just because, as they say, distance can make the heart grow fonder. But, let me get that little piece of pigment. Because you don't want them, because if it gets too safe, it gets boring. But if it's not safe at all, it's not worth investing in, because people are going to be like, I don't like what I was saying in that video. I don't trust this, and if I don't imagine, it's interestingly, I've heard this analogy before, and I may have even used it myself, but it's kind of like you're really getting into a romance relationship, sort of, when you kind of decide to invest in these companies and characters. And I know a lot of the times it's not like a conscious decision, like, oh, I'm deciding now to do this. It's just something that kind of happens. But regardless, it still happens. And I think that's why these fans get so into, like, so into their characters, you know what I mean? So when their handlers, the people who own them, just disappoint the people, that disappoint the fans with the decisions they make and how they handle these characters, it like really, it really upsets them. They feel like betrayed and, upset. And because you lured them into a thing where they were just putting in investment. They thought it was safe, but you pull the rug out from under them and it's like, nope, not really. When you decide to sideline their favorite character, indefinitely kill off their favorite character, make another character the focus instead of their favorite, stuff like that, So the thing that I will give DC and Marvel credit for is that they have a lot of people who are really, really invested in their characters. Like people can go, zany for their superhero characters, which is good. That's the type of investment that you like. Where they're dropping the ball, I think, is that okay, so it's difficult to really invest in. You might invest in a character maybe, but I find it's like getting harder and harder to invest in what's going on because they keep resetting the stuff with new number ones, and the story doesn't get allowed to continue, and it's kind of hard for readers to really get into that. Like it takes time for that investment to build up, and if you just keep resetting the clock, like we're switching out this writer for that writer, it's going to be a totally different story, and whatever you were just reading is not important anymore. I remember I was reading Supergirl comics and it was like that. I think it was like near the end of New 52. It's like Supergirl's like kept changing. It was like it's kind of, I'm like, okay, I'm out. Like I'm trying to read something here and you guys just keep upending the thing. So that's one of the things that's hard to invest in. And then you have certain types of characters, like interestingly black characters. I think with fans of those, I think the fans of them will understand this. You kind of feel like you're on eggshells. Like if they do get some focus, it's like, well, you better enjoy it now because you know it's not going to last long. The thing with these types of characters that I've noticed is that they might get pushed a bit for a time, but the company then swiftly decides not to do anything with them. They might get little pushes here or there, but, nothing sustained. I don't think I've ever seen that, actually, from, like, DC. Marvel more so, yeah, because you have, like, Miles Morales and Black Panther. But DC, no. Like, nothing that you can... Then this is key. Nothing you can really count on. Like, yeah, we'll push it for a bit, but then this character's going back in the drawer, and then if they pull him out again, the push that they had before doesn't matter. They're not going to reference it. So they end up not getting anywhere. So with that type of stuff, for certain types of characters, I think it can be, like, really challenging to invest in them because, let's see, my walnut oil... just getting more walnut oil. Because I don't know, the company just has not, made the fan of those characters, I would say. And, this might seem kind of like a silly thing to say, like safe space and all that, but I think it is, like, appropriate to say here. They haven't made the fan of that character feel safe. Safe in the sense that it's safe to invest in this. I can trust the people behind it to handle this well. To have faith in this character. to give the character time to develop and flourish, and find their audience, to give them a fair shake, to continue promoting them and pushing them, to make them visible. I don't think those readers have faith that these companies will do that, because the companies haven't given them enough reason to have faith in that. The companies typically, I would say, send the messaging that we'll try this for a while, we'll eventually end it, and then, that'll be that, and it won't last very long. And don't expect any showing that's too big from them. And if we do, it's just kind of, I'm using all these terms today, it seems, just kind of virtue signaling. Like nothing really substantive behind it, but just to say that we do it, or to kind of put on a show like we support or something like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's like, and then you kind of wonder, is this worth even getting involved with? Like reading this, getting invested in it, if I just know I'm gonna end up disappointed at the end of the day, and feel like throwing my hands in the air or flipping a table or something when the inevitable happens, that always happens. That's kind of the sensation that these companies, I think, give off, unless like it's a character that they really value. Okay, so we're blending out with mineral spirits. And one thing I want to do with Zatswan, and I understand, it's, people could be doubtful that, an indie comic could actually offer this, but, I just keep on keeping on. And if people don't feel that, if people don't end up feeling that sort of security from it, that's okay. I think that's just the thing that, again, that security comes with time. You kind of actually have to prove that, this is worth investing in for people to invest in it. And I understand that. But one thing I do like to show people is that, no, I'm here. This is like, I'm not going to friend zone my character, background my character, present him as not idealized or less than. Yes, he has challenges. No, he may not always win. But again, that goes back to like what I was saying before, is if it's too safe, it's just boring. And, that's the problem with characters like Rey from Star Wars and Captain Marvel and, let me empty my pencil sharpener. Some of these other characters that don't face enough adversity because they want to present them as bosses and stuff like that. It gets boring. They're not being challenged enough. I understand the need to try to present them as empowered, and you don't want to present them as incompetent, but the flip side of that is they're just boring. Your story isn't compelling because nothing is earned. Like they don't feel, if they're not challenged by anything, then or challenged by things sufficiently, then and that doesn't just go for female characters or POC characters. That goes for like all characters. Then the characters are just boring and there's not much story there. Okay, let's actually get in this ear here. Again, using these really nice Derwent Drawing Pencils, very good for portraits. So I like using them, on the skin tones here. But yeah, I try to show people that, I'm just doing Zatswan, keep doing Zatswan, keep doing Zatswan. You have to keep showing up. That's just how a lot of things work. And eventually, as you keep doing it, you build up a pretty good library of stuff for people to dive into. You just have to put one foot in front of the other and do it. I think some people might feel like, about investing in stuff, yeah, a lot of people are leery about it. It goes back to that like relationship analogy I was making. If you're a wise person, you just don't get invested in a relationship without any kind of sense of security. Like, you know what I mean? Because you can just get burned way too many ways there. Uh, so I think like these characters in comics, they share some commonality with that. Like when you do enter into like a enter into like fandom with a character, you kind of feel that, and and it's not so much the character that burns you, it's the company that owns the character that burns you with and decide to kill them off or sideline them or present them badly. And it's sad. I see like that is such a common thing with fans. It's like they're walking on eggshells. Like, um, they always seem to kind of have a maybe not always, but oftentimes they have sort of a cynical view of things. Like, oh, like I'm gonna give you an example. I saw this DC KO event coming out, and a lot of people talking about like I don't know what it is exactly. I think the heroes fight each other in some tournament or something, and a lot of people talking about like oh my character's definitely going to be out in the first round or something like that. So they kind of have a sense that their character is going to be treated poorly. That's like the default for a lot of people, which is unfortunate, and it really shouldn't be that way. That's not the way it's actually supposed to be. To the point where your kind of default is the character will be treated bad. I think at that point, and this is on the fans, I know, and not that I'm telling them what to do, but at that point, it is good to evaluate what you're actually doing, investing in, spending your money on. Because I asked all those same questions, and I am relating this back to that, again, story I told in that one video. I did the same exact thing. What am I doing? What am I spending my money on? What am I investing in? If I'm feeling this like out in the cold, and I'm actually willingly spending my money on that and putting in my energy towards it, what I mean, like, there's something not right there. I think I realized, it's not supposed to be like that. Here we are, the skin tone's starting to come together. You shouldn't have a relationship with the company like that. Because at that point, it's kind of like you are like settling into like a quote unquote toxic relationship. You know what I mean? You're settling for this because I guess you think on some level you have to, or there's nothing better out there or something. With me, it was like, I guess my better is like, well, if I want better, I'll have to make that. And I was cool with that. Like I mentioned in the video, I basically discovered a whole new passion, and it worked out well for me. So nowadays, I'm kind of like, I think it's dumb, but you want to make 1 billion human Green Lanterns from Earth and confuse and muddle your brand and like just kind of kneecap yourself like that. Yeah, I think it's dumb, and I definitely wouldn't do that, but you want to do that, okay, you know. Uh like if okay, I think it's dumb if like for example, don't want to take advantage of a thing like Green Lantern and Hot Girl, but if you want to do that, well, it's your stuff. I'll just like tune out of it. You know what I mean? If you do stuff I like, I can tune in. But I guess the thing is like I'm wary of getting so invested to the point where it's like, oh no, this is a serious bummer. But believe me, I've been there. I don't want to like shame people who are like that. But I guess what I'm saying is, and I'm not like here to tell you that Zatswan is that thing for you. Like I'm a pretty upfront person. Like a lot of these like indie creators on YouTube are not. They're like, the comic industry is dying, buy my thing instead, it's what you're looking for. And it probably isn't. So what I'm gonna say is like, I can't promise that Zatswan's exactly what everybody's looking for. I do think there is an audience for it, and people do like it, and that's why I show it here so you can see if it looks interesting to you. But what I will say to people is like, yeah, find what you like out there, and if it matters enough to you, and I'm not saying it needs to matter enough to people, then just make the thing that you're looking for. If you, especially if you don't feel it's out there, like if you're looking and it's like it's just not there, then you know what. And I'm also not one of these people who's going to tell you it is out there. Like if you look hard enough, you'll find it. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. What I will tell you is it legitimately may not be there. And if it is not there, then that gives you an opening to put what you want there. But yeah, that is the interesting trap about, these characters and stuff. They lure you into being a big fan of them, and you give up, and I'm nothing new. You got these people out here buying all these expensive $300 statues and getting their, like, first appearance issue for thousands of dollars, and they're all super into this, and then the company just kind of, spits in their face some kind of way, and or at least so they feel. And it just, for me at least, it would make me wonder, and it did make me wonder. I did have the first appearance of Jon Stewart. It's not worth, it was in good condition, but that it's not worth thousands and thousands of dollars, at least not when I had it. It's more like, at least an unslabbed one was more like hundreds. I sold it. I still do. I have like a massive. I still have that story, of course, just in like a collected edition. So I actually think I still have like, I don't anymore because new stuff has come out and I didn't buy it. But I have like every notable appearance from Jon Stewart in comics. But the stuff I don't have is like, I did not buy Green Lantern War Journal. And I think I jumped out during the Jeffrey Thorne run. So like all the stuff I didn't buy, like there's some stuff I'm missing. But by that time I was like doing Zatswan, and I was already like doing my thing over here, with that. So I wasn't in the same frame of mind that, of being the super fan. I was kind of focused on my own work. But, I could always just go back and get that stuff. And the Jeffrey Thorne run, I wasn't enjoying it. That's why I jumped off. And it's kind of interesting that it's like a Jon Stewart-centric story with him as... Well, actually, now that I'm thinking back on it, it was like cut into two narratives. Like one with Joe and one with John. And they were both bad, in my opinion. Didn't enjoy it. But yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So there are these people out there, that get all these figures and all these expensive comics, and then the company just kind of, probably, at least in their estimation, betrays them some kind of way. And that's not uncommon. This is not uncommon stuff. Like, angry comic book fans are actually kind of common. Dissatisfied comic book fans, you know what I mean? And I guess I just evolved past that phase, which is good for me. Because, yeah, it just kind of makes you think, like, if they're going to betray you like that. And I'm not even saying it's always, like, it's always the company being the unreasonable one to do so. It's just... whether it's not a matter of who's right and who's wrong. I think it's a matter of just if you feel that way, if you feel that the company has really, really let you down in some way. For me at least, it made me think, because yes, I was in those shoes. It made me think, like, man, I gave all this energy and time and money to this thing, and I don't have that sense of security from it. I mean, it just kind of made me think, you know. And I guess that's why I kind of, I wouldn't say jumped ship, but because if they put out something I like, I'll just happily go and read it. But um, I think I'm at the point where I just won't blindly follow something, or I'm at the point where I won't blindly follow something if it just has a character I like. Like, for example, I remember saying in that video that I was buying Green Lantern Corps comics even though I didn't like them. I just wanted to show support for Jon Stewart. I wouldn't do that now. Like, you make something I like, or I just won't buy it, which is a lot more reasonable, to tell you the truth. But my thinking at the time, which is stupid and it doesn't really work this way, even though I think comic fans have been sometimes trained to think it does. Oh, if there's a Jon Stewart appearance, make sure you buy it up, you know, like a lot. It usually doesn't work that way, at least not these days. Like, buy 50 copies. Okay. No, what it is like the company's gonna do what they want to do usually. Like, if they want to put, like, it wouldn't matter. Like, they weren't gonna push Jon Stewart unless something completely extraordinary happened, and then maybe not even then. I'm talking about back during that 2000s period. Just they're gonna do what they want to do, and if it's not their agenda, then they just won't do it. Okay, so we still have some coloring to do. It seems I've been rambling for over an hour, so I might take a break and you know, come back to this a bit later on and finish coloring in this skin tone. But I would say we made some pretty good progress here, huh? Zatswan's actually here. He's looking pretty golden. That's the look I want him to have, kind of a goldeny brown color. Zatswan, and yeah, it's his skin tone's like a goldeny type of warm brown. And these Derwent Drawing Pencils here are really, really, really good at that. So yeah, we'll come back. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll come back and do some more coloring here. But for now, I think I'll take a break. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave your own comments on the topics that we talked about here today. And check out Zatswan in the link in the description. And I will talk to you again very soon. Take care.